Growing up, all teens do things they probably shouldn't, and looking back, I can't believe the risks I took at 17. This particular night is one I will never forget, a night that started with excitement and ended in sheer terror. My cousin and I always wanted to experience the adult nightlife. So, armed with my fake ID that proclaimed I was 21, we decided to sneak into one of the most happening nightclubs in Detroit. The thumping beats, the shimmering lights, the electrifying atmosphere, it was everything we'd hoped for. That fake ID was like a golden ticket. Things were going great. The music was pumping, and I was dancing with a girl I'd just met. But as quickly as the night had started on a high, it took a horrifying turn. A man burst into the club, gun in hand, and started firing everywhere. The echoing gunshots, the screams of terrified clubgoers, it was a nightmare unfolding in real time. I did what anyone would, I ducked. The girl I was dancing with and I took cover under a nearby table, praying the chaos above would soon end. After what felt like hours but were probably just minutes, the shooting stopped. The deafening silence that followed was only interrupted by the muted cries and whimpers of those around. My cousin and I didn't wait around. Our hearts racing, we dashed out of the club and ran all the way home, reaching our safe haven around 1:15 a.m. We were shaken, traumatized by the night's events. However, the ordeal wasn't over. The very next morning, to our shock, the police were at our doorstep. In the panic of the previous night, I'd lost my wallet, fake ID and all. And now here I was, dragged out of my house in just my PJs, my heart pounding not to the beat of club music but raw fear. Although I wasn't involved in the shooting, the police wanted me as a witness. Sitting on that stand, recounting the night, was daunting enough. But then, there was the real killer. Across the room, his eyes bore into mine, and he slid a finger across his throat in a clear threat. The cold, calculating look in his eyes made it evident that if I said too much, there would be consequences. In that chilling moment, I decided to act clueless, like I hadn't seen anything. The police eventually realized I was just a terrified teen who'd made a foolish decision to sneak into a club. They let me go. But the trauma of that night, the shooter's gaze, and the weight of the court's atmosphere, all still haunt me to this day. It was a grim reminder that decisions, even seemingly fun ones, can have life-altering consequences. It was just another day on the job as an automotive engineer, but this time, the business trip was a bit further than usual. Alex and I were entrusted with the task of visiting a supplier in Kokomo, Indiana to review some transmission parts. The journey spanned a good 300 miles, starting from our base in Detroit, Michigan. By the time we reached, exhaustion had overtaken our spirits, prompting us to quickly check into our rooms. Our company, focused more on the budget than our comfort, had booked us into a Motel 6. It wasn't the swankiest of places, with the room doors opening right out onto the street. On the plus side, Alex and I were given adjoining rooms, connected through an interior door. Drained from the long drive, I collapsed onto the bed, expecting a peaceful night's sleep. But that tranquility was shattered by the sudden eruption of lights flashing through my window, accompanied by a loud noise reminiscent of a speeding train. I jumped up, thinking of alerting Alex. But as I approached our connecting door, I found it locked from his side. The blinding lights, coupled with the cacophony outside, made me believe that it was possibly a police situation. But as abruptly as the chaos had started, it ended, leaving me in a state of confusion. That's when I heard it, 3 deliberate knocks on my door. My heartbeat raced as I approached cautiously. "Who is it?" I demanded. Silence. Morning couldn't come soon enough. I quickly got dressed, eager to put the previous night's unsettling events behind me and focus on the presentation. Alex burst into my room, a mix of relief and shock evident on his face. "Man, I thought you left early for the meeting or something. The rental car was gone, and you weren't answering your door," he said, trying to catch his breath. That's when the realization hit us. The strange events from the night before, the police lights, and the mysterious knocker on my door weren't just random occurrences. The local police were on a manhunt for 2 individuals who had committed a break-in. In their haste to evade capture, they'd stolen our rental car. The entire incident felt like something straight out of a thriller, making us even more grateful to have come out of it unscathed. During a rainy afternoon in 1989, I was driving in high spirits, thinking about the girl I was dating, who would later become my wife. The happiness was short-lived when my truck, which was already in desperate need of tire replacement, hydroplaned due to the wet road. The truck flipped, and by some miracle, I emerged without a scratch. Unfortunately, my truck wasn't as lucky. It had suffered significant body damage and needed a new transmission. To cover the repair expenses, I took up a night shift job at Domino's Pizza. Initially, I thought I'd be delivering pizzas. But since my truck was out of commission, they made me the assistant manager for the night shift. The job was straightforward and somewhat rewarding, especially when we would give away unsold pizzas at the end of the night to those in need. However, every Friday night, our regular delivery guy, Joe, would return beaten up and robbed. Seeing him like that made me silently thankful that I wasn't out there, especially considering the notorious reputation of our neighborhood after dark. Then, one peculiar Saturday night as we were prepping to close up, a man in a conspicuously long coat for a July evening knocked on our front door. I shouted that we were closed, assuming he wanted some leftover pizza. He left, only to return about half an hour later, this time trying to force his way in through the delivery entrance. A sense of dread washed over me. As I was about to tell him to leave, he brandished a double-barreled shotgun and fired at our door. The deafening sound of the shot echoed in the silent night, but the bulletproof glass held strong. The sheer relief I felt in that moment was overwhelming. We immediately called the police, and with the help of our surveillance cameras, the man was caught within 2 days. Every time I remember that night, a chill runs down my spine, and I find myself endlessly thankful for that bulletproof door, which stood between me and certain death.
Please hit that subscribe, and if you have a horror story you would like to share, email us at grimreflections67@gmail.com. Thank you. Also check out our new mini-series about Sophia. She's coming back from the dead to haunt her bullies.